Hey everyone, if you've ever felt like your company is just this giant, messy puzzle where none of the pieces seem to fit together, well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to talk about the key to solving that puzzle: enterprise architecture tools. Let's jump right in.
So here's the plan. We'll start with the absolute basics. What in the world is enterprise architecture? Then we'll get into why you'd even need a special tool for it. We'll meet some of the big names in the game, talk about how to pick the right one for your team, and finally, we'll peek into the future to see where this whole market is headed. Sound good? Let's go.
All right, first things first. Before we can talk about the tools, we've got to get a handle on the main idea. So let's define enterprise architecture, or EA as you'll hear it called, and see how it takes all that business chaos and turns it into a clear, understandable blueprint.
Just take a second and think about your own workplace. You've got your business goals, right? And then you have all your IT systems, your different teams, all these complicated processes. When those things aren't working together, it doesn't just feel complex, it feels totally chaotic. And that is the exact problem EA was designed to fix.
The best way I've ever heard it explained is with this definition from way back in 2007. It calls EA blueprints for your organization, and that's perfect. Just like a builder needs a blueprint for a house, EA creates a detailed map of everything in your business: your mission, your people, your software. It shows you exactly where you are today and helps you plan for where you want to be tomorrow.
Here's where the real power is. It gives you that bird's eye view. It's not just about looking at tech by itself. No. It's about connecting all the dots between your big picture strategy, what people do every day, and the technology that makes it all possible. It's about seeing the whole system, not just the random little parts.
Okay, so if EA is the blueprint, you might be thinking, can't I just use a spreadsheet for that? Or maybe some diagrams? Well, you could, but the real question is, why do we need specialized software? And the answer is all about bringing that blueprint to life.
Because let's be real, your business doesn't stand still. It's always changing. New projects, new people, new tech. A blueprint you draw up on paper, or one that's just stuck in some diagram file, it's pretty much outdated the second you're done drawing it. An EA tool, on the other hand, turns that static map into a living, breathing model of your company that you can actually use to make smart decisions.
And trying to do this without a tool, that can be super risky. You wind up with systems that do the exact same thing, technology that literally can't communicate with each other, and you spend a fortune on maintenance just trying to hold it all together with duct tape. But worst of all, you get this massive gap between what the business is trying to do and what your technology can actually support.
All right, so you're on board. You need a tool. The next question is, which one? There are a ton out there, so let's take a quick spin through the landscape and meet some of the major players.
You can see right away, there's no single best tool for everyone. On one hand, you have something like SAP Leanax, which is really focused on helping CIOs modernize their tech. Then you have BizDesign, which is all about helping planners map out big business changes. And then there's Eris, which is a powerhouse for analyzing business processes. So, you see, the tool you choose really depends on the problem you're trying to solve. If your biggest headache is old, expensive tech, Leanax is probably your best bet. But if you're navigating a huge merger, BizDesign's focus on transformation is where you'd look.
And check this out. This data from PeerSpot really shows you how varied the market is. Yeah, you've got leaders like Leanax and Spark Systems, but look at that huge other slice, over 70%. That tells you this market is super fragmented, with tons of specialized tools out there, which means, yeah, you're going to have to do a little homework to find the right one.
And sometimes the best features aren't even the core ones. Take this review for Leanax. This user says the most valuable parts for them were the reporting and the training materials. In a field this complex, having a tool that not only holds your data, but also helps your team get smarter and share what they've learned, that can be an absolute game changer.
Which brings us to the most practical question of all. With all these choices, how in the world do you actually pick the right tool? Well, it really just comes down to finding the perfect fit for your team and your needs.
So you can basically break it down into 5 big questions you need to ask. First, functionality. Does it actually do what you need it to do? Second, usability. Is your team going to be able to learn this thing without a 6-month training course? Third, technical fit. Does it play nice with the software you already have? Fourth, the repository. How solid is the database where all this critical info lives? And finally, vendor support. When things inevitably go sideways, is there someone you can call for help?
And the right answer to all those questions? It completely depends on who's going to be using the tool. A strategic planner, for example, needs something that's super visual and easy to use for quick analysis, but a deep-in-the-weeds enterprise architect, they need a tool that's incredibly flexible so they can build really complex models. They're solving totally different problems, so of course, they need different tools.
This quote right here from a senior enterprise architect says it all. He's talking about a tool called Sparks, and he says that while it's powerful, he always has to spend a bunch of time training people because it's just not that easy to pick up. And that just perfectly highlights the trade-off, right? A tool's greatest strength, for one person, might be a huge roadblock for another. Usability isn't a nice-to-have, it's a must-have.
Okay, for our last section, let's look ahead. Because that fragmented market we were just talking about, it's starting to change. And it's changing fast, thanks to some pretty big trends.
And I mean, wow, what a change. In late 2024, 3 of the absolute biggest names in this space, BizDesign, Mega, and Alphabet, all merged to become one single company. That's a huge deal. It's a massive consolidation that tells us the market is really starting to mature, with the big players joining forces to offer one-stop shops.
And the road ahead is becoming pretty clear. This quote from Forrester about the newly merged company points right to the future: AI and real-time collaboration. The next generation of these tools won't just be for mapping out what you have. No, they're going to use artificial intelligence to suggest improvements, automate data gathering, and make this stuff accessible to everybody, not just the experts.
So, we've gone from static blueprints on paper to dynamic software, and now we're heading into an era of intelligent, AI-powered architecture. Which leaves us with one last, pretty wild question to think about. As this technology gets smarter and smarter, are we that far away from a business blueprint that can literally draw itself? Something to chew on. Thanks for hanging out with me.